Good afternoon, everybody. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV. We are here to bring you live coverage of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft. But why am I hearing two things? I'm hearing double things. Oh, I'm hearing this person talk. Okay, that was weird. I was hearing double things. We're going to see the Boeing Starliner spacecraft undock from the International Space Station and begin its journey home to Earth without a crew. Without a crew. It's going to come back by itself. Look. I had to move myself down a little bit because of the NASA logo. I can't obscure the NASA logo. So I moved myself down. But NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test, that's what it's called. That's what the whole flight that started in June, that went up there in June, and the flight home is called the Crew Flight Test. It was supposed to be about 8 days. It's been several months now. But the undocking is coming up. The undocking is coming up. And then later tonight, we're going to cover the landing. The landing is like after midnight. Give me a second here. So the live stream starts at 5:45 in 34 minutes. And we're going to watch it and we're going to talk about it. Okay, let's talk about this we're going to talk about this whole situation. We're going to talk about the whole situation. Oops. What I need to do for a second is I'll kind of summarize everything in a second. But what I need to do is what am I doing here? What am I doing here? I'm going to do this. Put that up there, that down. Put that there. I see. I see. Boeing's beleaguered space capsule is heading back to Earth without two NASA astronauts. Now, I know I'm normally higher on the screen. The reason I'm not higher on the screen for this broadcast is I had to move myself because when we're showing this, I can't block the NASA logo. So I have to be below the NASA logo. That's why I'm lower here. See how that works? Okay. So I'm sorry I'm a little lower in the frame. We'll talk. Let's talk about what's going on. That's an Associated Press article there. Basically, the Boeing Starliner spacecraft took two astronauts up in June, and then they were supposed to come back in like a week, but there were problems with the spacecraft, and NASA didn't feel confident enough to have the crew come back in the spacecraft. So the crew is going to come back in February on a SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft, and the Starliner is coming back tonight by itself, without a crew. Without a crew! Without a crew! What was the date of it? Hold on. The date it flew was... Was it June 5th? It was, I'm looking it up here. According to Wikipedia, it was June 5th. It was June 5th when it headed up there. All right, so why didn't they send it up without crew first? I think they did send it up without crew first. Yeah, Orbital Flight Test 2 docked to the space station. So in 2022, there was a flight test that did with no crew that docked to the space station. This was going to be the first and only crewed flight test. That's why it's called NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test, even though the crew isn't on the ride back. Hey, thanks to Kath for your support and Kerry Poteet. I really appreciate that. Let me thank our mods, and then we'll get into this. But we should have, in a half an hour, we should have a live stream from NASA that we can show you. Thank you to Ruth Krafasi for moderating. Thank you, Ruth. And thank you to Linda Belk and Larry, our moderators on X. And thank you to our Twitch moderators. Hopefully this all goes right. It's supposed to land in New Mexico after midnight. Over there on Twitch, thanks to our moderators, A Moment of Lovely, David Green, Idaho Star, I Got That Fire, Mark and NC, and Sharon C54. Thanks to Wall Street for subscribing. I appreciate that. And thank you to Margaret Riley for moderating. Thank you, Margaret. I appreciate it. So, yes, it is supposed to land at the, what is it called? I have to look it up here. It's the is it White Sands? It's at the White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico is where it's supposed to land. So the landing is supposed to happen after midnight, Eastern time. So, the landing's supposed to happen after midnight Eastern time, okay? And we'll cover that. We're going to cover that. Starting, I think, we'll probably come on the air around 10:30 p.m. or something like that, 10:30 p.m. So we're gonna bring the whole landing to you later. We'll do a separate stream for the landing. NASA is not doing a 6-hour stream. NASA is showing a feed of the undocking and then later on showing a feed of the landing. So we're not going to stay on the air for just to show you nothing for 3 hours in between or whatever it is. Thank you to Babs for the gift membership. Thank you to Xylee. The landing is supposed to be, I think, is it? Hold on. I want to say 12 something. I got to look it up on NASA and see, remind myself when the exact landing time is supposed to be. It is supposed to be 12:03 a.m. is the targeted landing. 12:03 a.m. is the targeted landing time, okay? So we'll be on before then. Hopefully it works. Hopefully they don't have any problems. What was the strange noise that it was making? There was a benign explanation for the noise. There was like this viral story about how it was making a weird noise a couple weeks ago, but it was just. I posted it on my X account here. NASA commercial crew. A pulsing sound from the speaker in Boeing Starliner spacecraft, heard by NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore aboard the International Space Station, has stopped. The feedback from the speaker was the result of an audio configuration between the space station and Starliner. The space station audio system is complex, allowing multiple spacecraft and modules to be interconnected, and is common to experience noise and feedback. The speaker feedback, Wilmore reported, has no technical impact to the crew, Starliner, or station operations, including Starliner's uncrewed docking from the station no earlier than Friday, September 6th. So that was the explanation for the sound. Hey, let's read about this. So this is an AP article. Boeing's beleaguered space capsule is heading back to Earth without two NASA astronauts. It's got nobody on it tonight. It's flying back autonomously. Well, I don't know if autonomous is correct because it's being controlled from the ground, I believe. So after months of turmoil over its safety, Boeing's new astronaut capsules, I mean, they've been working on this thing for years. It's been delayed and delayed. But its new astronaut capsule is set to leave the International Space Station on Friday without its crew. NASA's 2 test pilots who flew it up there will stay behind at the space station. They're home until next year as the Starliner capsule prepares to undock and aims for a touchdown 6 hours later in the New Mexico desert. Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams should have flown Starliner back to Earth in June, a week after launching it, but thruster failures and helium leaks marred their ride to the space station. NASA ultimately decided it was too risky to return Wilmore and Williams on Starliner, so the capsule contains their empty seats and blue spacesuits along with some old station equipment. SpaceX will bring the duo back in late February, stretching their original 8-day mission to more than 8 months. Boeing's first astronaut flight caps a journey filled with delays and setbacks. After the space shuttles retired more than a decade ago, NASA hired Boeing and SpaceX for orbital taxi service. Boeing ran into so many problems on its first test flight with nobody aboard in 2019 that it had to repeat it. The 2022 do-over uncovered even more flaws, and the repair bill topped $1 billion. SpaceX's Crew Ferry flight later this month will be its 10th for NASA since 2020. The Dragon capsule will launch on the half-year expedition with only 2 astronauts instead of 4, since 2 seats are reserved for Wilmore and Williams for the return leg. So there you go. Jonathan says, 0 shot it lands. We're going to do a poll about this. So I hope everything goes okay with it today. The reason I'm a little lower than normal on the screen right now is that we are going to be showing you the NASA feed, and I need to be below the NASA logo. So I got to have you see the NASA logo up there. So we'll be watching that. Thank you, Camus, for your support. Camus. We're going to do a poll in a second. Thank you also, Nick Van Sickle, and Babs and Xylee for your support. The poll is going to be, will Starliner land on Earth intact? That's the poll. There's nobody on it. There's nobody to be on it. Will Starliner land on Earth intact? That is the poll I'm going to ask you right now. And a reminder, tonight, several hours after this, we will come back on the air and cover the landing. Live coverage for you. All right, let's see what our viewers said in our poll here. Let's see what our viewers said in our poll. Here are the poll results right now. Over on YouTube, the poll results are 56% say no, it will not land intact. 43% say yes. Slightly more think no. And actually, very close over there on Twitch. Very close on Twitch right now. It is currently 60-40 on Twitch. 49-51. So you're very close, YouTube and Twitch. You are very close on this one. Is it going to land or plop on the ground with a parachute kind of thing? You know, I don't know. I don't know how it lands. I bet some of our audience members know. I can try looking it up. No, by intact, Valovica, thank you. By intact, I mean without any kind of significant structural damage. All right, well, more of you think it's going to have some problem landing intact than not, and not be able to. Integrity Farmer Bob says, looks like a chute design. Oh, what the huh says, where it lands on airbags. You know, I think I have a picture of it. That reminds me, what the huh. I think I have a picture of that. Let me pull that up. All right, first of all, thanks for voting in the poll. Thank you for voting. Oh, all right, hold on a second here. Yes. So this is a photo from NASA right there. That's a photo of the Starliner when it landed after its test flight in 2022 at White Sands Missile Range's Space Harbor. So it looks like it's, I mean, at least it looks like there. Oh yeah, there are landing bags. I'm reading to you from NASA. NASA says, once Starliner re-enters Earth's atmosphere, the forward heat shield located on the top of the spacecraft is jettisoned at 30,000 feet, exposing the 2 drogue and 3 main parachutes for deployment. So there are parachutes. The parachutes will continue to slow the spacecraft down as the base heat shield is jettisoned at 3,000 feet, allowing the 6 landing bags to inflate. At touchdown, the spacecraft is traveling at approximately 4 miles an hour. Now, we're going to see that later tonight. On this stream, we're not going to see that because this stream is about the Starliner undocking from the space station. Oh, wow. Malachite says it will land with a Boeing. Oh, my gosh, Malachite. You really should be timed out for that. Do they need to load it with weights to account for missing astronauts? That I do not know. It's a good question. I don't know if they're doing that. Let me just show you some more. Let me just read you some more about this. I actually have this timeline from NASA. The Starliner spacecraft is the first American capsule designed to touch down on land, not water, supporting expedited astronaut and cargo recovery on future missions, and to aid the company in spacecraft refurbishment. It is supposed to land tonight in the White Sands Missile Range. So it says here, when teams proceed with undocking, Starliner will complete a series of departure burns, allowing it to reach its landing site in as little as 6 hours. Okay. Once clear to proceed, Starliner executes its deorbit burn, which lasts approximately 60 seconds, slowing it down enough to re-enter Earth's atmosphere and committing the spacecraft to its targeted site. Immediately after the deorbit burn, Starliner repositions for service module disposal, which will burn up during re-entry over the southern Pacific Ocean. Following service module separation, the command module maneuvers into re-entry position. During re-entry, the capsule experiences plasma buildup, reaching temperatures up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit that may interrupt communications with the spacecraft for approximately 4 minutes. Once Starliner re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, the forward heat shield located on the top of the spacecraft is jettisoned at 30,000 feet, exposing the 2 drogue and 3 main parachutes for deployment. By the way, a drogue parachute is a parachute designed for deployment from a rapidly using object. That's according to Wikipedia. If I'm pronouncing that right. I think I am. Anyways, the parachutes come out, the parachutes will slow down the spacecraft as the base heat shield is jettisoned at 3,000 feet, allowing the 6 landing bags to inflate. At touchdown, a spacecraft is traveling at approximately 4 miles an hour, and this is what it's supposed to look like. Because that's what something like that. That's what the landing was like in 2022 of that test flight with the airbags. Hey, thank you, Babs, for your support. Thank you, Babs, for the gift membership. Hey, in about 15 minutes, the live stream from NASA starts. How about that? Oops, one moment here. Why is... Oh, I was already doing this. So this... Maybe I can give you a little more of a summary of what the problems were. I know a bunch of you have been keeping up with this, but it was only supposed to... This was supposed to be the third test flight of the Starliner, which has been delayed, has had, like, I believe, years of delays and cost overruns. And the hope was that this test flight, which would be its first manned test flight, would go really well, and then they could certify it to start doing regular missions, bringing astronauts to and from the space station. But there were problems with thrusters and helium leaks, and on the flight up, and NASA studied it for a while, and ultimately they just couldn't. They had doubts. I remember we covered the press conference, and they said I believe they said they had doubts about the thrusters. They couldn't figure out enough about what was making the thrusters not work, and have enough confidence that they couldn't figure out enough to have enough confidence in this thing bringing the astronauts home. Not the confidence level they wanted. Hey, thanks, Bruce Kaiser. Bruce says maneuvering a spacecraft while in orbit is completely counterintuitive and very complicated. See orbital mechanics. Thank you, Bruce Kaiser. Let me show you a little other background about this. Boeing Starliner is set to return home Friday with no astronauts, says Washington Post. Deep Purple fan thinks it will be a fiery but most uneventful return to Earth. Kathy says, can't wait. Moments in Trading says if it lands fine, the 2 astronauts will probably be upset tomorrow. Oh, thanks, Janet Burnett. That's so nice of you. Thank you, Janet. I appreciate that. Now, Wheelie HD says, wonder where Butch is going to sleep. He was sleeping in Starliner. Is that true? I didn't know that. Other lady is sleeping in a Chinese capsule docked at space station. Well, at this point... But at this point, aren't there... There's a... so I got to look at the schedule, but there's 7 other crews still on the space station besides them, I think. But I believe, if I'm getting this right, if I'm getting my timing right, soon there's a Soyuz spacecraft that's going to take 3 astronauts out of there. I'm not aware of this whole sleeping thing, so I can't. Oh, KFTW says no China craft at ISS. I haven't heard anything about them having issues sleeping. So one of our viewers was saying this. I know nothing about this. I can tell you what the current craft are docked at the space station. Hold on. Visiting vehicles. Should say it right here. Right here. Starliner is attached to it. Crew Dragon is attached. Soyuz, which is another crew capsule. Progress and Progress, I believe, are both resupply ships. Progress 88 and Progress 89 are resupply ships. Soyuz is a cruise ship. Crew Dragon is a cruise ship. Cruise Flight Starliner is a cruise ship. That's a crew ship that's going to undock tonight. And Cygnus is a looks like it's saying Cygnus is the Northrop Grumman supply ship. Cygnus 21. Yes, Cygnus is a cargo spacecraft. So currently there are 3 cargos. There's 2 supply ships. There's 2 resupply ships and a cargo ship, and maybe those are Maybe they're all technically cargo ships. The 3. And then there's 3 crew capsules attached right now. And Soyuz, I believe, is a Russian one. And 2 American ones, SpaceX and Boeing. Yes, Soyuz is a Russian spacecraft, and it carries people and supplies to and from the space station. That's from NASA. So that's a nice... Yeah, I haven't heard about anything about sleeping issues, but I don't know. Let's see here. There was an article in Business Insider that says... No, I can't see that one. Where is it here? Oh, I think our viewer... Wait, what is this? I'm a little confused. I'm not going to worry about the sleeping stuff now. It looks like they had to make some certain sleeping arrangements. Oh, I can find it. Yes. There are 7 permanent sleeping spaces, I believe, according to USA Today, but there are other places at the space station where astronauts can sleep. Okay? Anyways, hey, let's talk about this. Enough about the sleeping. Let me give you a little background here. We're waiting. So again, in about 10 minutes, we'll start to get a live stream from NASA. In 26 minutes is when the undocking is going to happen, which we'll be watching live. We should be watching live. Shortly after midnight, it's supposed to land in New Mexico. We'll cover that on a separate stream. And thanks, by the way, to Babs for the gift membership and Terry Poteet for more gift membership. So nice of you. Thanks also to Zonti Misfit. What if it flies off course? Public danger? I don't know what kind of safety is built in for something if it were to fly off course. Maybe there's some kind of self-destruct mechanism on these things. I don't know. I don't believe that's a serious worry. Although I guess in theory, if all of the propulsion means stopped working, that could be an issue. So I don't know if these things come with like a self-destruct mechanism or something. I have no idea. Maybe they don't. Maybe they figure it's not worth putting on. So it's all cost and effect. Hey, thank you to Ben. Ben says, hey, Drew, glad you're finally tuning into AFTV. And thank you, Lucia Horizo. I will be covering it tonight, too. Thank you, Zach A. Zach A says, on Poly Market, people are betting on whether it successfully returns to Earth. I'm trying to find it. I looked it up on Poly Market and I can't find it. Oh, will Boeing Starliners successfully return to Earth? People are betting on it, and yes is the favorite. Yes is the favorite over no. 88% chance according to the bettors on Poly Market. Real quick, I just want to look at this for a second. Boeing Starliner is set to return home Friday with no astronauts, says Washington Post. The Boeing Starliner space capsule that lost NASA officials' confidence to safely bring home 2 astronauts will begin its return from orbit with no crew very shortly, and if all goes well, it will parachute to a landing in New Mexico early tomorrow, shortly after midnight tonight, says Washington Post. But even a successful landing will be something of a hollow victory. The last leg of the groundbreaking mission would conclude a test flight that strained relations between Boeing and NASA and raised questions about when the Starliner will become fully operational. NASA officials have So again, this spacecraft brought 2 astronauts to the International Space Station in early June. It was supposed to stay about a week, but the spacecraft was deemed unfit to bring them home because of equipment issues. Those astronauts will come home in February in a SpaceX capsule. The plan is to have Starliner undock around 6:04 p.m. in about 22 minutes. Depending on the weather, using thruster burns, it will be steered towards Earth to begin its descent into the atmosphere. Officials expect the uncrewed capsule will land at White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico around 12:03 a.m. tomorrow morning, Saturday morning. The spacecraft's return without the 2 astronauts represents a stinging loss for Boeing, which had hoped that this test flight would lead to regular operational missions for the spacecraft. But because the Starliner experienced thruster problems and helium leaks as it brought the pair of astronauts up to the space station, and because NASA couldn't figure out what was going on well enough for them to be confident enough, NASA deemed the complete round trip with the crew too risky. Now Boeing will have to continue to run tests on the Starliner on the ground before it can be fully certified for future crewed flights. Let's see. The challenges are not over. The SpaceX Dragon mission that is set to bring home Wilmore and Williams is slated to launch and go up there on September 24th. That capsule will remain there till February, when it will return with the 2 astronauts it's taking up and the 2 who are there now, Wilmore and Williams, the 2 who are stuck there. Okay. All right, guys. Very close to starting on with the NASA live feed. Very close to this starting. In about 2 minutes, the NASA live feed is supposed to start. Okay? So we're going to have a live feed from NASA of this. And you can see right there, we're waiting for it to come on the air. And we're going to cover this. And we should see the Starliner undock from the space station. And at some point, that live stream will end. And NASA will take a live stream break. And we'll eventually end the stream after that, because several hours later, they will do another stream. And we will cover the landing in New Mexico. I anticipate coming on the air for that maybe around between 10 and 10:30 p.m. Eastern time is when we'd come on the air for that. So we'll be back after this stream with another stream. Okay, we're very close to this live thing starting here. Let me read some more comments from you. Sorry, I'm trying to keep an eye on everything here. Hold on, I have to pull up something else on my screen as well. Oh, hold on. I got to turn the music off. Music is off. The music is off. There we go. Look, undocking. Undocking starting soon. The live stream is starting soon. It is starting soon. It has music that I can't play because it might be copyrighted. Hey, thank you, Babs, for the gift membership. Thanks, R.S. Pat, for your support. Thank you, Georgia Peach, for being a member. Janet Burnett, thanks for the gift memberships. Thank you. Thank you, Glenn Barrows, for being a new member. All right, guys, we are getting close. You can see it there. In about a minute, they're going to do the live stream there. Wow, it's getting serious here. Here we go. I'm going to put my little live thing up. My little live sign. Get that going. That's too big. Too big. No, too small. I mean, there we go. That's a nice size. Live. Oh, can I use my live? Hold on. They're doing something. They're doing something.
And welcome to the Starliner Mission Control in Houston, where teams are preparing for the autonomous undocking and departure of the uncrewed Boeing Starliner spacecraft from the International Space Station. Undocking today is currently planned for 5:04 p.m. Central, 6:04 p.m. Eastern. I'm Anna Schneider with NASA Communications, and joining me today in Starliner Mission Control is Lauren Brennicke from Boeing Communications. Across the hall in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, we also have NASA's Rob Navius.
In preparation for today's undocking activities, the teams here in Starliner Mission Control and the Flight Control Room, Flight Control team in the International Space Station Flight Control Room recently completed the go, no-go poll for Starliner's undocking. The teams all polled go to proceed with undocking. And the team here in Starliner Mission Control is being led by Flight Director Chloe Maring. Today's undocking will set Starliner on its path home for landing at White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico, targeting approximately 11 p.m. Central, Friday, September 6th, midnight Eastern on Saturday.
NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams flew to the International Space Station in June as part of NASA's Boeing Crew flight test, lifting off atop a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket from Space Launch Complex 41 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida on June 5th. The Starliner spacecraft docked to the International Space Station on June 6th. During the June 6th rendezvous, NASA and Boeing identified helium leaks and experienced issues with the Spacecraft Reaction Control System, or RCS thrusters, as Starliner approached the station. Since then, engineering teams have completed a significant amount of work, including reviewing a collection of data, conducting flight and ground testing, hosting independent reviews with agency propulsion experts, and developing various return contingency plans. The uncertainty and lack of expert concurrence did not meet the agency's safety and performance requirements for human spaceflight, thus prompting the NASA decision to return Boeing Starliner spacecraft to Earth without astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams aboard. The uncrewed return allows NASA and Boeing to continue gathering testing data on Starliner during its upcoming flight home, while also not accepting more risk than is necessary for its crew. Wilmore and Williams will continue their work formally as part of the Expedition 71 and 72 crew through February of 2025. They will then fly home aboard a Dragon spacecraft with two other crew members assigned to the agency's SpaceX Crew 9 mission, NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov. As part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, this is Boeing's second flight to the International Space Station and third Starliner flight test overall, following a second orbital flight test in May of 2022.
They got some snacks out there, it looks like. Am I wrong? Are those snacks? Am I wrong on that table there?
Yesterday, the hatches were closed between Starliner and the International Space Station. There are three hatches that separate the inside of Starliner from the orbiting laboratory: the Starliner hatch and the APAS hatch and No. 2 forward hatch on the station side. Following hatch closure, teams worked through steps to depressurize the vestibule, which is the area between the station hatch and Starliner hatch that were exposed to the vacuum of space prior to docking. Shortly after the go, no-go poll earlier today, where the joint teams here in the Starliner Mission Control and the International Space Station Mission Control polled go for undocking, NASA astronaut Sunny Williams called down to the flight control team on Space to Ground to share some words with the team before Starliner's departure later today. We'll go ahead and replay that exchange for you now.
Ooh, Sunny Williams, earlier today.
Station Houston, Space to Ground 2 for Starliner undock status.
This is earlier today.
Go ahead, we're with you.
Hey, Sunny, both the Starliner and ISS flight control teams have pulled go for undock at this time. The expected undock time is 22:04.
Okay, copy, 22:04.
There she
hey,
is.
We're just looking at the flight control roster, and wow, it is the all-star team. You guys, it is the time to bring Calypso home. You have got this. We have your backs, and you've got this. Bring her back to Earth. Good luck.
Sunny and Butch, this is Chloe. Just on behalf of the entire MO team, I know the other flight control teams around the building, we thank you for your endless support over the years. We've enjoyed every training event and every meeting. We remember every setback and every revelation with you. The teams on the ground have worked countless hours over the last few weeks, months, and for a group of us, years to bring Calypso back, and we're ready to do that today. We wish you the best of luck in your increment, and Sunny, I will make sure the right people have your coming home song ready to play on Space Dragon when it's time for you guys to come home. Good luck, and thank you.
That was earlier today, that audio.
Wonderful comments, Flight. We appreciate that, and we agree. Many years of great enjoyment, simming together, playing together, and being involved with each other's lives, and it's been special. Bring it home.
I assume that's Butch Wilmore's voice.
Cappy, thank you, and have a good evening.
Those are the two astronauts who can't come back yet because they took the Starliner up, and now they're stuck there until February. But the uncrewed Starliner is about to come back tonight with no crew on it. With no crew
we are
on
now
it.
Just over 13 minutes away from today's planned undocking. As we continue to approach that undocking, you can see the team here and the Starliner mission control team working in tandem with the ISS flight control room across the hallway.
Hey, thanks,
Just
PZ
before
Papa
we came
Zulu.
on the air here, the teams opened up the helium manifold to check Starliner's leak rate. Everything looks good. The teams say the rate remains steady, and we have plenty of margin for the rest of the flight. So let's talk a little bit about what is coming up. At around 5:02 p.m. Central, 6:02 Eastern, we are going to be listening for the authority to proceed for undocking. After the ATP, or authority to proceed, is issued for undocking, the hooks on the NASA docking system will begin to open. There are 12 hooks that seal the surfaces between the docking system and the ISS International Docking Adapter, or the IDA. Once all of those hooks are open, springs on Starliner's docking ring will push the spacecraft away from the space station. So again, we're expecting that undocking at 5:04 p.m. Central, 6:04 Eastern. And then just a few seconds later, at about 5 meters out, our first separation burn. Starliner's thrusters will complete 2 short firings to gradually increase the separation speed to help the spacecraft carefully move away from the orbiting laboratory. The command given to Starliner will be to back straight away to the 200-meter mark, but then a few seconds later, a second command will be given before it gets too far to change that path and head up higher than station. These 12 pre-planned burns will be performed with Starliner's forward-facing reaction control system, or RCS thrusters, which have been performing nominally during this flight.
Starliner will then begin a breakout burn, which will take the spacecraft forward and above the station. During this burn sequence, Starliner's thrusters will perform a series of 12 short firings. This entire sequence will take about 5 minutes to complete and will allow Starliner to quickly break out to outside of the approach ellipsoid, or AE. About 4 minutes into this burn sequence, Starliner will exit the keep-out sphere, or KOS. The keep-out sphere is an imaginary 200-meter sphere centered on the space station. Once outside the keep-out sphere, vehicles must provide a 4-orbit safe free drift trajectory.
Around 5:10 p.m. Central, that automated breakout sequence will be completed. And then just 15 minutes later, we will be out of the approach ellipsoid. The approach ellipsoid is in the same family as the keep-out sphere, but this time it is an imaginary 3-dimensional ellipsoid around the space station. Vehicles outside the approach ellipsoid have to be on what we call a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory, and that means the spacecraft would not cross over that imaginary line for at least 24 hours, even if it lost all maneuvering capabilities. Once outside the approach ellipsoid, joint operations between the Starliner Mission Control and International Space Station Flight Control Room will conclude, and Starliner will be on a path back to Earth.
So pretty soon after it undocks, it's going to start firing some thrusters.
A few minutes ago, teams completed a final weather briefing to analyze weather predictions for the landing site at White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico, and the weather continues to look good to support a landing later today. As part of the departure preparations for Starliner, mission managers completed a series of operational and weather checks. Yesterday, 24 hours before undocking, NASA analyzed the weather predictions for the landing site, and there are several different weather criteria that must be met, including winds at the selected landing site must be approximately 13 miles per hour or 12 knots or less when uncrewed, and ground temperatures must be warmer than 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and the cloud ceiling must be at least 1,000 feet. 1 nautical mile of visibility is also required, and the area must be clear of precipitation, thunderstorms, and lightning within an approximately 22-mile radius. A final weather check will also take place before the spacecraft's deorbit burn, which is currently scheduled for 10:17 p.m. Central, 11:17 p.m. Eastern.
And following the weather briefing, the navigation and docking lights on Starliner were turned on. The LADARs were confirmed to operate, and the RAL cards were enabled for departure. The LADARs, or laser detection and ranging lasers, create a 3D picture of the International Space Station for Starliner's computers to help the spacecraft guide itself around the ISS when it's flying close to the station. The LADAR system was developed and tested in orbit aboard the Space Shuttle as they docked with ISS. The RAL cards, or Remote Analog Interface Unit, gathers data on the status and health of critical spacecraft systems during all phases of the mission. This allows the important systems information to be stored aboard the spacecraft so engineers can review it once the spacecraft lands.
Getting close to undocking time, guys. About 7 minutes until undocking. The unmanned spacecraft. They're going to try to bring it home. It is the Boeing Starliner spacecraft, which was supposed to take 2 astronauts to the space station for about a week, but it had some issues, and they are flying it back empty. Hey, thanks so much to Multicorker and Ricky Graybill and Thomas Kruger and PZ Papa Zulu and Chris Canada, Quebec City and Steve Griffiths for your support. Thank you. Thanks to all of our moderators, too. Ruth Krafasi's over there. Linda Belk and Larry, thank you for moderating. Oops, hold on a second here. Quick thanks to Margaret Riley. Thanks to all of our mods. Ronald Egnor, thank you, Ronald. Twitch mods, A Moment of Lovely, Big Ball of Yarn. David Green, LB Prairie Dawn, I Got That Fire, Mark and NC, Sharon C54. Thanks for modding. Now this says
We're now just over 6 minutes away from the planned undocking at 5:04 p.m. Central. As we continue to stand by for Starliner's departure from the International Space Station, I'll hand it over to NASA's Rob Navius for an update from the International Space Station Flight Control Room.
Thanks, Anna. Here in the Space Station Flight Control Room at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, the Flight Control team led by Flight Director Anthony Varia is in the final moments before the expected undocking of Starliner from the forward port of the Harmony module on the International Space Station. Once the undocking is complete and Starliner has exited the approach ellipsoid that you heard Lauren describe just a moment or two ago, the 9 crew members on board the station, led by Commander Oleg Kononenko, will begin their sleep period. They're going to be moving into an off-duty period on Saturday. The vacancy of the forward port of Harmony will open up that port for the beginning of 2 crew rotations over the next several weeks. Next Wednesday, NASA's Don Pettit and Roscosmos cosmonauts Alexei Ovchinin and Ivan Wagner will be launching from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on a 2-orbit rendezvous to reach the International Space Station. That will swell the station's population to 12.
Wow.
And begin an 11-day handover with NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson and Kononenko and Nikolai Chub, who will be departing the station on September 23rd. A day later, if everything goes as planned, NASA's Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov will be launching from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station on the SpaceX Crew Dragon Freedom They will be a two-man crew to reach the International Space Station and provide the orbital Uber, if you will, for Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams to come home on next February, with Wilmore and Williams completing what is expected to be about a 262-day mission. Meanwhile, the Crew 8 crew, Matt Dominic, Mike Barrett, Jeanette Epps, and Alexander Grebenkin, are in the final weeks of their mission on board the station. They are planning to depart after a 5-day handover with Haig and Gorbanoff. That handover will lead the way for a departure on or around October 1st. The Crew 8 crew will then be coming home to bring the station back to its complement of 7 crew members. So with that, we're about 3.5 minutes away from the planned undocking of Starliner. We'll be watching carefully. It will take about 21.5 minutes from undocking for Starliner to exit the approach ellipsoid that you heard Lauren describe a moment ago. That's that 2.5 mile long by 1.2 mile wide corridor, if you will, the neighborhood of the International Space Station. So we'll be following along as Starliner begins its journey home and a landing at midnight Eastern Time at the White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico. With that, we'll turn it back to you, Anna, in the Starliner control room.
Wow. Let me fix something here.
Station Houston, Space to Ground 2 for Starliner undock status.
Go ahead.
ISS and Starliner flight control teams remain go for an on-time undock at 22:04. Please perform 1.106 cruise CST 100 approach and departure monitoring steps 2.2 and 2.3. Verbally call Houston when physical step is confirmed. Be advised that NDS hook motors are driving. Space-to-space comm may be ready.
ISS crew copies, ready for undock monitoring.
Thank you, Rob. And we just heard some conversation between the crew on the International Space Station and the teams here in the Starliner Mission Control, confirming that we are continuing to be go for an undock in just under 2 minutes from now at 5:04 p.m. Central, 6:04 p.m. Eastern. We are standing by for the command of the undock ATP, or authority to proceed.
We are
Once
waiting.
the authority to proceed is issued for undocking, the NDS or NASA docking system hooks will begin to open, and there are 12 hooks that seal the surfaces between the NDS and the ISS International Docking Adapter, or IDA. Once all 12 hooks are open, springs on Starliner's docking ring will push the spacecraft away from the space station.
I might move
And
myself.
Flight Director
in this.
Chloe Marion just asked for quiet in the room as we are approaching 1 minute out from Starliner undocking.
All right.
And we just heard confirmation that the umbilicals are retracting and hooks are beginning to drive.
I'm going to move myself over so I can show you the logo. I got to have the logo up there. So ignore my moving myself over while we do this. Oh, look, Steve is moving. What just is happening? Can I get this to work? This is never going to work. It's already not working. Why is this not working? Oh, I see.
30 seconds.
It's unlocking. It's undocking.
Separation confirmed. Starliner is now backing away from station and starting
There you
its
go.
return to Earth. Starliner thrusters will then complete 2 short firings to gradually increase the separation speed to help the spacecraft carefully move away from the orbiting lab.
Sorry, I was trying to move myself. It didn't work well, but we got to see
The vehicle
this.
is now about 2 meters away from the International Space Station. At the time of undocking, Starliner and the International Space Station were flying approximately 260 statute miles over central China.
It undocked. It's undocked. Look at this.
Starliner will be beginning a breakout burn soon, which will take the spacecraft forward and above station.
Breakout burn coming up. You can see some thrusters fire.
During this burn sequence, Starliner's thrusters will perform a series of 12 short firings. The entire sequence takes about 5 minutes to complete and allows Starliner to quickly break out to outside the approach ellipsoid, or AE. And about 4 minutes into the burn sequence, Starliner will exit the keep out sphere, or the KOS.
Yeah, this is pretty neat. We're going to see the thrusters soon. Are they going to close the hatch? That's a good
question. You can see those thrusters firing there on the left of your screen as Starliner backs away from space station.
I didn't see them fire. On the left of the screen?
We are now just at 35 meters away from the International Space Station.
I saw a thruster fire.
We saw a good first burn.
It's amazing.
ISS thrusters enabled.
Confirmation, all 27 jets have fired.
Wow.
Houston copies, ISS thrusters enabled.
Wow.
You're seeing the light show there on your screen.
Pretty crazy. Look at this. It's like it's not real.
And the first 3 of the 12 firings have completed, and there's about a 100-second pause until the 4th burn.
They keep doing those thruster firings. Look at that. Wow.
Starliner is about 60 meters away. And flight controllers are reporting good attitude and good control.
We are standing by for the 4th of the 12 burns in the series of firings as part of the breakout burn. As a reminder, the entire sequence will take about 5 minutes to complete. About 4 minutes into the sequence, Starliner will cross what is known as the keep-out sphere. The keep-out sphere is an imaginary 200-meter sphere centered on the space station. We are 15 seconds away from the 4th burn in the series of 12.
There you go. More thrusters. More thrusters. Look at that. Wow.
And you just saw burn 4, which just completed. We're hearing good burn.
Look at those thrusters. Amazing.
And the 5th burn in that sequence of 12 just completed, and it was a good burn. The 6th burn in the series of 12 was just completed, and it was a good burn. We are halfway through the series of 12, 6 more to go.
Crazy. Wow. Almost doesn't look real. I mean, it is real, but it's just crazy to see it.
You might be able to see some of those lights on the front of Starliner, a red and a green and a white. Those indicate the different sides of Starliner. And they're used by the ISS crew to watch Starliner move away from the ISS along the undocking axis.
And we just heard good confirmation of both burns 7 and 8 completed. Starliner undocked approximately 5 minutes ago and has just a handful of short firings left in its breakout breakout burn, and it is now about 150 meters away from the International Space Station. And we heard confirmation of a good burn 9, 3 more to go.
Wow.
Burn 10, good burn.
So far, so good. So it is
We
on
have
its
one
way.
more burn to go, but they have confirmed that Starliner has crossed the Keep Out Sphere, or the KOS, which is an imaginary 200-meter sphere centered on the International Space Station that helps flight controllers here on the ground monitor the arrival and departure of visiting vehicles.
Station Houston, Space to Ground 2. Starliner has exited the Keep Out Sphere.
It's out of the Keep Out Sphere.
Copy, she's exited the Keep Out Sphere.
A reminder, this automated breakout sequence was chosen to use Starliner's forward thrusters, which have remained nominal during this flight.
And we heard confirmation that all 12 burns in this series of breakout burn firings have completed, and they were all good burns. Starliner has crossed the Keep Out Sphere. So the next milestone for Starliner's departure will be crossing the approach ellipsoid, or AE. The AE is another invisible shape monitored by the flight control team, measuring 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. Starliner is scheduled to cross the approach ellipsoid in about 10 minutes. Vehicles outside the AE have to be on what we call a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory, which means the spacecraft would not cross into the approach ellipsoid for at least 24 hours, even if it lost all maneuvering capabilities. Once outside the approach ellipsoid, joint operations between Starliner Mission Control and the International Space Station Flight Control Room will conclude, and Starliner will be on a path back to Earth.
There is no one in it. There were supposed to be 2 astronauts in it, but NASA was not confident enough in it bringing them back safely, so it's coming
We're now
back by
taking a
itself.
look from
Ooh.
the VESTA system, which stands for Vision-Based Electro-Optical Sensor Tracking Assembly. It's a bit of a mouthful, so we like to call it VESTA. And this is a look from Starliner back at the International Space Station. The system is really the eyes of Starliner. It's able to pick up on features on the outside of station, like handrails and reflectors. You can see some of that on your screen there in the outlines. And it's the way to assess Starliner's position and attitude. It also gives the ground teams a very accurate look at Starliner's location relative to the station. So earlier we were taking a look from the station back at Starliner. Now we're looking from Starliner back at station.
We're just under 10 minutes away from the AE exit, so in the meantime, we will check back in with NASA's Rob Navius in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Rob?
Thank you, guys. Flight Dynamics has reported that Starliner is on a perfect trajectory backing away from the International Space Station and opening a rate of about 13.5 statute miles per rev. At the time of the deorbit burn, at 10:17 and 13 seconds p.m. Central Time later this evening, The vehicle will be about 56 statute miles away from the International Space Station. That deorbit burn, by the way, will be a 59-second burn to slow Starliner down by 129.9 meters per second, a 4 OMAX burn. OMAX, the acronym for the Orbital Maneuvering and Attitude Control System, thrusters and jets on the Starliner spacecraft that will enable Starliner to begin to drop out of orbit for its intended southwest to northeast trajectory across the Pacific Ocean, across Baja California, and heading towards its landing at the White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico. With the forward port of Harmony now vacant, that sets the stage, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, for the start of a couple of crew rotations that are coming up. Down at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, Don Pettit of NASA and Roscosmos cosmonauts Alexei Ovchinin and Ivan Wagner and their backups are in the final stages of their preparations for launch next Wednesday. Their Soyuz 2.1A booster and the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft that they will ride to orbit. That vehicle will roll out to the launch pad in Baikonur on Sunday, and then final preparations will lead them to a launch next Wednesday at 11:23 a.m. Central Time, heading for a two-orbit, 3-hour, 10-minute journey to dock to the International Space Station's Rassvet module. Now, that forward port on Harmony that was just vacated by Starliner's departure will be the port of call for NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, and their launch no earlier than September 24th on the SpaceX Dragon Freedom spacecraft off of Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. That will be about a 30-hour transit for those two crew members to reach the International Space Station and the automated docking to the forward port of Harmony. Ultimately, Hague, Gorbanov, Butch Wilmore, and Sonny Williams will do a relocation of the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft from the forward port of Harmony to the zenith port of Harmony, opening up that forward port for the arrival of the next SpaceX cargo ship, SpaceX 31, that's scheduled for launch in October. So a lot of activities lying ahead for the space station crew. The crew aboard the International Space Station soon will begin its sleep period and an off-duty day on Saturday, while the activity shifts over to the White Flight Control Room down the hall, as they are in a shift handover right now. Flight Director Rick Henfling will be taking over shortly to supervise entry and landing operations, and the team over there will be monitoring the progress of Starliner as it moves to its deorbit position about 56 statute miles away from the International Space Station. With that, we'll turn it back to the White Ficker and Anna and Lauren.
I don't know if we don't have the video anymore of the actual. Oh, no, we got the video.
Thank you,
back.
Rob.
Nice.
Starliner is now about 750 meters away from the International Space Station as it continues to make its way to the approach ellipsoid exit. Again, that approach ellipsoid exit is targeted for 5:25 and 30 seconds p.m. Central Time, 6:25 and 30 seconds p.m. Eastern Time, and everything continues to proceed as planned with Starliner's departure and return back to Earth.
And you're looking live at Starliner in free drift. Engineers are telling us that the breakout burns all went well. Thrusters are all looking good. Everything is nominal as we continue up and around space station and head back to Earth.
Everything good so far, guys.
Again, Starliner undocked just a short while ago from the International Space Station at 5:04 p.m. Central, 6:04 p.m. Eastern, as the space station and Starliner were flying approximately 260 statute miles over central China. And shortly after that physical separation, Starliner's thrusters completed 2 short firings to gradually increase the separation speed and help the spacecraft carefully move away from the orbiting laboratory as part of the separation burns. And then Starliner began the breakout burn, which was a series of 12 short firings, which allowed the spacecraft to quickly move outside the keep-out sphere, and it is now approaching the approach ellipsoid exit. And once
Ooh.
Starliner is outside
Look
of
at
the approach
that.
ellipsoid, the joint operations between teams here in the Starliner Mission Control and the International Space Station Flight Control Room across the hall will end, and Starliner will be back on its path to Earth.
It is supposed to land in New Mexico shortly after midnight tonight, Eastern Time.
And we are
We'll
about
be
6
covering that
minutes
as
away
well.
from that approach ellipsoid exit, and Starliner is now about 900 meters away from the International Space Station, traveling
Okay.
at a rate of 1.2 meters per second.
So it's right now it's over a half mile away from the International Space Station, they just said.
That dot in the center of your screen is Starliner, looking from space station.
Thanks Ariane7 and Babs and Kenneth Colton and Grevin Scher for your support. Where'd it go? Move the camera. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at that. Little graphical representation. There you see the graphic of the space station and the Starliner. Oh, what happened? What happened? What happened to it?
We are now about 5 minutes away from the approach ellipsoid exit. Starliner undocked from the International Space Station about 16 minutes ago at 5:04 p.m. Central, 6:04 p.m. Eastern. Starliner is now just over 1,000 meters away from the International Space Station. After Starliner crosses the approach ellipsoid, the next milestones for the vehicle will be its entry cover closure, and that is planned for about 6:42 p.m. Central, 7:42 p.m. Eastern, and then there will be some checkouts of the OMAC thrusters at 7:05 p.m. Central, 8:05 p.m. Eastern. And then after that, we get into the entry and landing coverage, and the go-no-go for the deorbit burn will be at approximately 9:57 p.m. Central, 10:57 p.m. Eastern, following with the deorbit burn about 20 minutes later at 10:17 p.m. Central, 11:17 p.m. Eastern.
They said in I think they said in an hour and 20
good
minutes.
views of Starliner leaving the International Space Station. It's that distant dot on your screen.
Look at
The
that.
vehicle is now about 1,120 meters away from the International Space Station.
I think they said that they closed the entry cover in like an hour and 20 minutes.
And we just heard confirmation that Starliner is out of the approach ellipsoid. The approach ellipsoid is a imaginary three-dimensional ellipsoid around the space station, and vehicles outside of the approach ellipsoid have to be on what we call a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory, which means the spacecraft would not cross into the approach ellipsoid for at least 24 hours, even if it lost all maneuvering capabilities. Now that Starliner is outside of the approach ellipsoid, joint operations between the Starliner Mission Control and International Space Station Flight Control Room will conclude, and Starliner is now on a path back to Earth. So once again, Starliner undocked from the International Space Station at 5:04 p.m. Central, 6:04 p.m. Eastern, as the space station was flying 260 statute miles over central China. Shortly after physical separation, Starliner's thrusters completed 2 short firings to gradually increase the separation speed to help the spacecraft carefully move away from the orbiting laboratory.
Starliner then began the breakout burn, and Starliner's smaller jets performed a series of 12 short burns to allow the spacecraft to quickly move outside the approach ellipsoid. Starliner again crossed the approach ellipsoid moments ago and is now on its journey home. The next milestones for Starliner ahead of its deorbit burn targeted for 10:17 p.m. include crossing the entry cover, closing the entry cover, and conducting checkouts of the OMAX, or the orbital maneuvering and attitude control thrusters. Those are the bigger jets on Starliner.
Ooh, look at that. Again, the landing
For now,
is
let's
supposed
check in one final time with NASA's Rob Navius following Starliner's exit from the approach ellipsoid.
Thank you, guys. Here in the Space Station Flight Control Room, Flight Director Anthony Varia and his team will be remaining on console throughout the course of the evening, keeping a watchful eye on things.
Space to ground 2 for Starliner status.
Go ahead.
Calypso has exited the approach ellipsoid. Sunny, we are ready for RWS teardown when you are.
Okay, she's on her way home. Congratulations to the undock team, and we'll be tearing down the RW.
Copy, thanks.
I think that was Sonny Williams, the astronaut.
Spacecraft communicators are here in the station flight control room talking to Sonny Williams, International Space Station. The Starliner is perfect trajectory, moving well away from the International Space Station for its deorbit burn at 10:17 and 13 seconds p.m. this evening. Once again, that'll be a 59-second burn of the 4 orbital maneuvering and attitude control system jets on the Starliner spacecraft to slow Starliner down by 129.9 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit to begin its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere, and a landing just about midnight Eastern Time, 11 p.m. Central Time, give or take a few seconds, at the White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico. With that, the space station team will begin to turn its attention to the next major activity. That will be the launch out of the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on Wednesday of NASA's Don Pettit and Roscosmos cosmonauts Alexei Ovchinin and Ivan Wagner on the Soyuz MS-26 spacecraft that will increase the station's population from 9 to 12, and the beginning of a busy several weeks of crew rotations on the International Space Station, leading to the start of Expedition 72. So with that, we're going to call it a day here in the Space Station Flight Control Room, turn it back to you guys in the white Flight Control Room down the hall.
All right, thank you very much, Rob. Starliner is now on its way back home to Earth and has about a 6-hour journey ahead of landing. We are targeting again around 11 o'clock Central, midnight Eastern for that landing at White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico.
We will resume live coverage of Starliner's deorbit entry and landing beginning at 9:50 p.m. Central, 10:50 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thank you for joining us for Starliner's undocking and departure from the International Space Station. This is Mission Control Houston.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Oops. All right. So what's going to happen is the Starliner has just left. Do you guys want to see the undocking again? Why don't we? Let's watch the undocking again. Let's watch the undocking again. We're going to do a little replay of the undocking. Then we'll talk about this. So we're going to talk a little more here now, and then I'll take a break. The next live stream from NASA isn't until 10:50 p.m. So we're gonna do some more of this. Hold on a second here. Hold on one second. So we'll do some more coverage right now, and then eventually we'll take a break and then come back and do another stream for the landing. But let's real quick. I'll just send you over to the undocking. Watch this. All right. So let's watch. This is going to be the undocking here. Hold on. Let me get it queued up. I got to queue it up for you. I don't remember when exactly it happened. All right, there it is. Oh, it's right around here. Okay, this is going to be a replay. We're going to do a replay of the undocking. All right. So replay, here is a replay of the undocking when it happened. I'll get myself out of the way. All right, this is from NASA. Here it is. So we were watching here. This is a replay. Keep your eye out. Any moment now. This is the undocking again. I think I queued it up, basically. There it is. Wow. That's what it looked like when it was undocked. How about that? How about that? Then we'll replay the thrusters working too. That was, what, about half an hour ago or something? So we're just replaying this moments from a short while ago, moments ago. I should put up moments ago on the screen. Oh, hold on. Let me have it say moments ago.
Starliner will be beginning a breakout burn soon, which will take the spacecraft forward and above station.
We're watching this replay.
During this burn sequence, Starliner's thrusters will perform a series of 12 short firings. The entire sequence takes about 5 minutes to complete and allows Starliner to quickly break out to outside the approach ellipsoid, or AE. And about 4 minutes into the burn sequence, Starliner will exit the keep out sphere, or the KOS.
So I'm going to show you guys. We're just going to watch again when you'll see the thrusters firing, which is really cool. They have the thrusters firing a bunch. So I'm just replaying this part again so we can see it again.
And you can see those thrusters firing there on the left of your screen as Starliner backs away from space station.
See the left of your screen?
And we are now just at 35 meters away from the International Space Station.
Keep watching. Keep watching.
We saw a good first burn.
Watch this. You'll see the thrusters fire.
Houston, ISS thrusters enabled.
Confirmation, all 27 jets have fired.
Houston copies, ISS
Look at that.
enabled.
And you're seeing the light show there on your screen.
It's pretty neat. Look at that. Look at that.
And
Look at that.
the first 3 of the 12 firings
Crazy.
have completed, and there's about a 100-second pause until the 4th burn.
Again, this was moments ago, probably about 20, 30 minutes ago. We watched this, just watching the thrusters again. Look at that.
Starliner is about 60 meters away.
Watch a little more of this. More thrusters to come.
And flight controllers are reporting good attitude and good control.
We are standing by for the 4th of the 12 burns in the series of firings as part of the breakout burn. As a reminder, the entire sequence will take about 5 minutes to complete. About 4 minutes into the sequence, Starliner will cross what is known as the keep-out sphere. The keep-out sphere is an imaginary 200-meter sphere centered on the space station. We are 15 seconds away from the 4th burn in the series of 12.
All right, watch. More thrusters going to happen right now. More thrusters coming. Right there. Wow.
And you just saw burn 4, which just completed. We're hearing good burn.
Again. It's very cool.
And the 5th burn in that sequence of 12 just completed, and it was a good burn.
So this thing is going to land, if everything goes right, it's going to land a little after midnight in New Mexico. A little after midnight Eastern time Look at that. In New Mexico.
The sixth burn in the series of 12 was just completed, and it was a good burn. We are halfway through the series of 12, 6 more to go.
And we'll be doing coverage of that. We got a bunch of coverage coming up
You
later.
might be able to see some of those
the
lights
landing.
on the front of Starliner, a red and a green and a white. Those indicate the different sides of Starliner, and they're used by the ISS crew to watch Starliner move away from the ISS along the undocking axis.
And we just heard good confirmation of both burns 7 and 8 completed. Starliner undocked approximately 5 minutes ago and has just a handful of short firings left in its breakout burn, and it is now about 150 meters away from the International Space Station. And we heard confirmation of a good burn 9, 3 more to go.
We'll just watch the burns again. Look at this. Wow. We'll just watch these burns again. A couple more. This is a replay from about 20, 25 minutes. Well, look at that. About 25 minutes ago, I think. 20 minutes ago.
Burn 10, good burn.
Look at that. Wow.
We have one more burn to go, but they have confirmed that Starliner has crossed the Keep Out Sphere, or the KOS, which is an imaginary 200-meter sphere centered on the International Space Station that helps flight controllers here on the ground monitor the arrival and departure of visiting vehicles.
Station Houston, Space to Ground 2. Starliner has exited the Keep Out Sphere.
Copy, she's exited the Keep Out Sphere.
Someone said, "Why don't we see stars?" And someone else in the
A reminder, this automated breakout sequence was chosen to use Starliner's forward thrusters, which have remained nominal during this flight.
By the way, so yeah, these thrusters you're seeing.
And we heard confirmation that all 12 burns in this series of breakout burn firings have completed, and they were all good burns. Starliner has crossed the Keep Out Sphere. So the next milestone for Starliner's departure will be cross or AE.
Yeah. So really quick, this is just a replay of what we saw, but the thrusters they were using that we saw, being used, those were thrusters that performed fine on this flight. They have had issues with some of the thrusters. That was maybe the biggest problem, the biggest concern with bringing the astronauts back on this spacecraft, which they decided not to do, is whether the thrusters would have problems on the way back. But the thrusters they were just using, that we were seeing them use, those were all ones that had worked the whole flight, they were saying, as I take it. One of our viewers had said, "Why can't we see the stars now?" And another one of our viewers said, "Well, it's the same reason you can't see this you can't see it on Earth during the day. It's that it's the sunlight," and pointed out that the sun is hitting the spaceship. So that sounds reasonable to me. That it'd be the same reason. Hold on a second. But I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's a different reason. That, like when we see it from that angle, from that high up, we're not seeing the stars. That's a great question. I don't know. I do not know. I'm trying to find you an answer. Let's see here. Right. So there's an article from Wired that talks about this. And what Wired says is that the article is titled, "Why Can't Stars Be Seen in Moon and Space Photos?" I'll actually post the link in the chat, okay, to this article from Wired. And I'll give you a little summary of what it says, but you can read the article. But what it says is that, I just posted the link to the article. On Earth, at night, the sky is black, obviously, and when it's black, and at night we can see the stars. During the day, the sky is bright and not black because of the diffusion of light through the atmosphere. But in space, there's no atmosphere to spread the light around. And the sky will appear black at midday, but it's still just as bright. It doesn't really, I'd have to read this article again completely, but I just posted the link in the chat. I posted the link to the article. It says that an astronaut looking out at the window in midday will see just as much direct sunlight as you would on Earth looking out your apartment window, but the sky won't be blue, it'll be black. Anyways, I don't want to get. It's an interesting question. I'll have to read up more on that. But anyways, let's talk a little more about what's coming up. So I guess one thing that the article says is just because the sky is black doesn't mean it's not daytime where the astronauts are. Oh, thank you to Stax and Justin Lawrence for your support, and Christopher Anderson. Thank you. And also thanks to on Twitch, Paper City Gamer and Who Shot JR and A Moment of Lovely and Karcha and SD and C50 Pack and Cubat and Wall Street. Thanks for your support on Twitch. So let's just summarize where we're at the moment. So the Starliner is on its way home. Actually, this is from Associated Press. What you can see, and NASA is not live streaming at the moment. The NASA live stream is over. So NASA's going to live stream later again. There's no NASA live stream right now of this. But that's a picture of what we saw earlier where of the thrusters firing. And then there's a picture of the undocking, which we saw before as well. So this Starliner capsule, it's supposed to bring. I'm gonna take my headphones out. I can do that. My AirPods out. Now I can do this. Hold on. Things might pause for a second here. So this Starliner capsule Boeing has been working on this thing. Hang on. Boeing has been working on this Starliner capsule for years, and NASA wants it to get done so they can have it to bring astronauts to and from the International Space Station. They already have the SpaceX Crew Dragon. but they want to use this. They want to have 2 different ways to bring astronauts to and from the space station. This thing has been under development for years. It has gone significantly over budget. And this was supposed to be the one crewed test flight that if it went well, if everything went well, then this was supposed to be the last test flight before it was certified, good to go, to start taking astronauts on regular flights to and from the space station. But on the flight, there were issues with helium leaks and thrusters, and NASA wasn't sure why these problems were happening, and they tried to figure stuff out as best they could and look into the issues while this craft, which had taken 2 astronauts to the space station, was supposed to stay there for about a week, but they kept it there for months because NASA was trying to figure out what caused the issues on the spacecraft. Are those problems going to happen when, or similar problems going to happen when it's coming back? And NASA just could not figure out enough to be confident enough to have this spacecraft take home the 2 astronauts, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, who it took up. So what NASA said is, okay, we're just going to bring this spacecraft back with nobody on it. And the 2 astronauts are going to wait there. And another SpaceX Crew Dragon is coming in a few weeks, I believe. And it will have 2 empty seats on it. And it'll stay there until February of 2025. And then the 2 astronauts from the Starliner will take the 2 empty seats on that SpaceX craft. And they will fly back down in February. And this spacecraft right now is headed home. It is flying home, and it is supposed to land shortly after midnight in New Mexico, and we're going to cover that. And NASA is going to start streaming their coverage around 10:45 Eastern time. So what we're going to do is we'll talk a little more now, and then we'll take a break, and then I'll come back on the air probably around like 10 or 10:15 Eastern, and we will cover the landing with the NASA live stream a little later on tonight, if all of that makes sense. Our viewer GG Mode says, I find this, GG Modi says, I find this amazing. I remember watching rocket launches in the school library 50 years ago to watching this today. Yeah, and one of our viewers was saying it's incredible we can just see this and see the thing pull away and see the thrusters firing. It's crazy. Dolores Wilson says, praying all goes well. Welsh Lad says it could burn up if the thrusters don't work. Yeah, hopefully everything goes fine. Mr. Juan Dover says, is there any concern with the astronauts being up there for so long? No, in the sense of astronauts have stayed up at the space station for actually longer, for around a year. So NASA, I've heard press conferences with them, they don't have huge concerns about it. And they say that the astronauts know when they fly up there on a test flight like this that something could go wrong and they might have to stay up there longer than they initially thought. So it's no serious problems that we're aware of with them staying up there for a lot longer than they were supposed to. Let's see here, gang. Hold on a moment here. I want to take some comments from you guys. Maybe we'll do one more poll. What is this here? Oh, this is interesting. Carrie Poteet sent this, and I hadn't seen this before. Look at this from NASA. Look at what NASA posted. I hadn't even seen this. Spot Starliner on its way back to Earth. After the spacecraft undocks from the space station, which it already has, it will soar through Earth's skies before landing in New Mexico. If you're on the visibility path and skies are clear, look up and you might see it. I'll post a link to this in the chat. So if you're somewhere down there, you might see it. Thank you, Carrie. Here, I'm going to actually do this. I got to do this a better way. Here's the visibility path from NASA. Why? Oh, hold on. You're going to see it in a second. See it in a second. So if you're somewhere on that path, you might see it. Les Salavi says, I'm down there. I'll be looking. These are minutes, I think. Yeah. I think this is mountain time. So that'd be 11:45 Eastern time and 11:52 Eastern time. Although it might, I don't know if those times have slightly changed today at all or anything. Anyways. So that's in a little bit. That's in several hours from now. Okay, let's we're going to do a poll. So now that it has undocked, okay, so it's undocked successfully. It's gotten away from the space station successfully, and it's on its way home, right? Now that it is undocked, what are the chances it gets home without any major issues? So, poll. Will Starliner land without any major issues? Yes or no? I just posted it in YouTube. I'm going to post it on Twitch right now, and we'll see what you guys have to say. That's an Associated Press article on the screen right now, by the way. All right, according to our YouTube viewers, they seem a little more confident now than they were before. According to our YouTube viewers, 55% of them say it will land without any major issues. 45% say no. And over on Twitch, it's pretty similar. 56% say yes and 44% say no on Twitch. So there you go. 50 now it's 55-45 on both. It's 55-45 on both. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. You can see here, AP says, after months of turmoil over its safety, Boeing's new astronaut capsule has departed the International Space Station without its crew and is headed back to Earth. The two test pilots stayed behind at the space station, their home until next year, as the capsule undocked 260 miles over China. Springs gently pushing it away from the orbiting laboratory. The return flight was expected to take 6 hours. It's going to land shortly after midnight, supposedly, with a nighttime touchdown in the New Mexico desert. The two astronauts on board should have flown Starliner back to Earth in June, just a week after launching it, but thruster failures and helium leaks marred their ride to the space station. NASA ultimately decided it was too risky to return the duo on the Starliner. So the fully automated capsule left with their empty seats and blue spacesuits along with some old station equipment. SpaceX will bring them back in February, stretching their original 8-day mission to more than 8 months. And we talked about this before. Boeing's first astronaut flight caps a Boeing spacecraft journey filled with delays and setbacks after the space shuttles retired more than a decade ago. NASA hired both Boeing and SpaceX for orbital taxi service. Boeing ran into so many problems on its first test flight with no one aboard in 2019 that it had to repeat it. The 2022 do-over uncovered even more flaws, and the repair bill topped $1 billion. Those were the 2 flights before this one. This is the 3rd test flight. Meanwhile, SpaceX is going to be doing its 10th flight, taking astronauts to and from the Dragon, the space station, later this month. As veteran astronauts and retired Navy captains, Wilmore and Williams anticipated hurdles on the flight. On the test flight, they have kept busy in space, helping with repairs and experiments. The 2 are now full-time station crew members, along with the 7 others on board. Here's something a little about the thrusters and the helium failings. Even before the Starliner launched on June 5th, Starliner's propulsion system was leaking helium. The leak was small and thought to be isolated, but 4 more leaks cropped up after liftoff. Then 5 thrusters failed. Although 4 of the thrusters were recovered, it gave NASA pause as to whether more malfunctions might hamper the capsule's descent from orbit. Boeing conducted numerous thruster tests in space and on the ground over the summer, and Boeing was convinced the spacecraft could safely bring the astronauts home, but NASA disagreed and opted for SpaceX instead. Flight controllers planned more test firings of the capsule's thrusters following undocking. Engineers suspect that the more the thrusters are fired, the hotter they become, causing protective seals to swell and obstruct the flow of propellant. Wow. They won't be able to examine any of the parts. The section holding the thrusters will be ditched just before re-entry. So I guess they're going to try to do some testing of the capsule before re-entry to help them figure out what went wrong, because the section holding the thrusters will be ditched just before re-entry. So they're not going to be able to look at that section on Earth in person. NASA's Commercial Crew Program Manager Steve Stitch says the space agency remains committed to having 2 competing U.S. companies transporting astronauts. There's this question: is it possible that NASA would ultimately say, or Boeing would say? I don't know if it's up to Boeing. Can they say it? But could it end up that Starliner is just never finished and never gets certified to bring astronauts back and forth to the space station? I don't know. Wow. Read a few more comments here from you guys. So again, we're gonna come back on the air a little later tonight, probably around 10 Eastern time, to cover the landing. And we're going to have a whole other live stream from NASA. NASA's going to be live streaming the landing, and we're going to cover that. Make sure you turn the notifications on for the channel. We cover all kinds of live breaking news here. I can't tell you in advance for a lot of these things when we're coming on, because I don't know when big breaking news is going to happen. I mean, I knew this was going to happen, but generally speaking. But we have a notification system, and it's free. You sign up once, and you get notified every time we go live. Works really well. We do it through Discord. The mods will post the link to the notifications in the chat. And also, you can find the notifications link on the Facebook and YouTube description for this broadcast. In the Facebook and YouTube description for this broadcast. We're going to do some more coverage right now. I'm going to take some more comments from you guys. Before I take some more comments from you, let me real quick do a couple of shout outs. I want to shout out some of our subscribers Why is the poll still going on Twitch? Should be over by now. Thanks to our Twitch subscribers like Shaggy and Wall Street, Uller Uprising, Cornhusker. I really appreciate your support for the channel. The Sugaro. Who else is over there on Twitch right now? Relila. Thanks to Jack's Animals. And Blue Pip. All of our other Twitch subscribers as well. Really appreciate your support for the channel. And our Facebook subscribers. Want to shout them out. Like Eve Richards and Margaret Riley, Ronald Egnor, Duster Singer, Billy Joe Drage, Lou Green, Robert Rial II, Jane Summers, Kay Lowry Body, Marie Minicello. Any of them I might be missing over there on Facebook. Let me shout out a few YouTube members too. Lexa Fulmer, then we'll take a few more comments from you guys. Lexa Fulmer, Lucky Minute, Posiwi, thanks for being YouTube members. Flor Morena, Nuyorican Joseph, Cheryl Simpson, Just Me, Kathy, K-A-T-H-E, Tara TJ, Stax, Lexa Fulmer, PZ Papa Zulu, Brian Tampa, Danny G, Gary Eckert, Tis What It Is, Riddles. Thanks, YouTube members. Think and Repent, Smelly Hippie, Tis Mythical, Bunker Buster, Kerry Poteet, PZ Papa Zulu, Marco Anzalone, Cheryl Simpson, Basic J, Eric C, LNG, Catch 22, Doug Cahill, Paula Faust, Wickedest Witch, Gary BB, Tim. Hey, thanks Tim747 too. Tim747 and Lucia Herezo. Lucia says it's a dream to be in space. They're not upset to get to stay longer. You don't become an astronaut to stay on Earth. Look, I do think there's something to what Lucia is saying. I've actually talked about this before. I'm guessing, yes, the astronauts are, certainly, I'm sure, miss their families and are upset about not being able to see their families. But I'm also guessing that part of them is not upset that they're like stuck in space. And I agree, you only get so many times to go to space in your life, and they are astronauts. So I'm sure part of them loves being in space. But again, I'm sure they miss their families greatly as well. You know, that's a long time to be away, especially when you didn't anticipate it. Thanks to our new member, Brian Tampa, too. Libra Moon says they're not going to be home for the holidays. By the way, this is a NASA photo from the NASA live shot there. So we're going to be doing a whole other stream tonight. Dan Clark says, get the popcorn. Kerry McAlien says, according to their family, I didn't see this report myself. Kerry says, according to their families, the astronauts are happy to have extra time to stay up there. Oh, Estella Manuel says, we will be heading to an area where we can set up and try to see it, I guess. Fingers crossed we can see it. Hey, Estella Manuel, I hope you guys end up seeing it. Matthew Hopkins says, I wonder how the astronauts are being affected physically and mentally by being in space for that long. Brian says, there are thousands upon thousands of Boeing planes that fly every day. Boeing is safe, trust me. Now, the Boeing Space is a different division, I believe, than Boeing aircraft. According to Wikipedia, there's 3 divisions. Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Boeing Defense, Space and Security, and Boeing Global Services. Thanks, Stax, for your support as well. Thank you. So remember, we are going to be watching the landing. We're going to be watching the landing tonight. And I'm planning on coming back on the air around like 10 or 10:15. because I think NASA's resuming their live stream at 10:50. Hang on a moment. I'm just going to try to get you. Let me see if I can get you any updates here on a couple things. Give me a second here. Let me just check a couple things here. But so far, everything's gone fine with the undocking. Yeah, see, look. NASA, tune back in at 10:50 p.m. as live coverage continues. We'll come on the air before then. For Boeing Space's Starliner return to Earth, landing targeted for around midnight Eastern Time at the White Sands Space Harbor, New Mexico landing site. Just after midnight. Eric Berger, who is a space reporter at Ars Technica, space editor, says that the next major milestone will be a deorbit burn to enter Earth's atmosphere at 11:17 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll be watching that later. Oh, they posted the video too. I'm going to repost this. We were watching this before. International Space Station. We watched this a couple times. The uncrewed Boeing Starliner spacecraft has departed the space station, undocking from the Harmony module's forward port at 6:04 p.m. Eastern today. We watched that earlier a couple times. There you go. Oh, also, you know, speaking of space, I'm planning on doing coverage of the Polaris Dawn mission, which is a upcoming SpaceX mission where a private crew of 4 people is going to go up there and attempt the first private spacewalk ever. So now I don't believe that got delayed. They were originally supposed to launch before now, but I don't know if they have picked an exact date. That's supposed to be soon. I don't believe at the moment, because as of last night, there was not an exact time. I think they were waiting for some weather to clear. So I have not seen an exact announcement yet of when that's supposed to happen. But the crew's supposed to launch soon, and then like roughly 2 days after they launch, they're going to do the private spacewalk. Basically, there's no airlock. They're basically going to open up the ship to space, and they're going to do, I think, some sort of 45-hour gradual. I don't know if it's a 45-hour depressurization thing they do, but it takes 2 days from after the launch for them to do that private spacewalk thing. Anyways, I'm hoping to cover that, so I'll keep an eye out for that. Oh, thank you to Maine, by the way. I appreciate it, Maine. Thank you. Let's see here. Hang on one moment. So I'm not aware, you know, we saw it leave the space station. It seemed to be going fine. So I'll let you, I mean, I anticipate coming back on the air around like 10 or so. Where is this thing? Where is this thing? Yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated on the Polaris Dawn thing. Oh, yeah, no, the undocking already happened. So we're coming back on the air for the landing. It's heading home. It's heading home now. All right, I'll take a few last comments, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back on later tonight. Okay? That's what we're going to do. Oh, hold on a second here. Oh, so in terms of closing the hatch, I think they said the hatch closes around like 7:40 p.m. Eastern time. But that we're not going to have a live shot of that. I don't know why they do it at that time. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to hang on here. By the way, our viewer Stanton Reddington says, I don't have a good feeling about this. Well, hopefully it goes fine. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Our viewers were split about whether it would land safely. So we'll just have to see. We're gonna watch and see later and see what happens. Okay? All right. So what we're going to do is, it is now 7:10 p.m. I'm going to wrap up the stream. I'm going to take a little break. And we're going to do another stream. I think I'll probably come on around 10 Eastern time for our live coverage of the landing. The landing. And we're supposed to have live footage of the landing. There's supposed to, I believe, be a news conference after the landing. So a bunch of coverage to come on this. The landing in New Mexico. Landing on land. With where it lands on like these airbags. So that is coming up. We're going to be... Oh, I'm sorry. You know what happened? This headline is off. See how the headline says uncrewed Boeing Starliner heading back to Earth? The problem is I was not on this on this shot of myself for a long time. And of course, I haven't updated the headline here. So I'm sorry for the confusion on that. Oops. That's the problem. That's what happened there. Okay. So, yes, it is heading back to Earth. It is already undocked. We're going to come back in a bit. So, I hope you join me a little later on. We will have more live footage from NASA and all that. And I appreciate you joining this stream. Glad it's gone well so far. And we will... have more coverage from you coming up. Let me thank, by the way, our moderators. Thanks so much. RJ has been here. Ruth Krafasi. We couldn't have chat rooms without our moderators. RJ and Ruth Krafasi. Also, Linda Belk and Larry on X, Bash and Girl, Big Ball of Yarn, David Green, LB Prairie Dawn on Twitch, and all of our other moderators who've been in and out. Ronald Egnor, Margaret Riley, Kay Larry Body. Thanks for being here. Thanks to all of our moderators. Much appreciated. And thanks to everybody who donated. That's so nice of you. Did I thank Mary? Mary, I think I thanked. Maybe I didn't. Thank you, Mary, for your support. Yeah, thanks to everybody who donated. That's super nice of you. You're the ones who keep this channel on the air. And so I really appreciate that. If you ever want to donate, you can go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. But thank you. So nice of you guys. And let's see here. Did I thank Paper City Gamer? I think I did. But I'll thank Paper City Gamer again over on Twitch. So turn on the notifications for the channel. We have a notification system. It works great. It's free. The mods will post the link in the chat. At the same link, you can check out our Discord chat where you can chat with other viewers when we're not live. A lot of our viewers like doing the Discord chat. That is also free. Thanks to our Discord mods as well. And a reminder, I will post updates on news when I'm not on the air. This is where I post when I'm not on the air. At Lookner on X. Follow me there. At Lookner on X. And for another heads up when we're going to go live, follow at Agenda Free TV. I always post on that account on X before we go live and let you know we're going live. At Agenda Free TV. And another quick reminder to, if you watch on YouTube and you want to get the YouTube notifications, which I think is good to do to make sure you're hearing, it's another good way to know when we're going live, or we are live. If you want to get the YouTube notifications, what you got to do is after you subscribe on YouTube, you need to click this bell here. Click the bell, the notifications bell, and choose all notifications. So do that if you're a YouTube viewer and subscribe. Okay, I thanked a couple minutes ago. I thanked our Twitch subscribers and our Facebook subscribers and our YouTube members. Really appreciate all of your support. Thank you. And yeah, we're going to come back in a little bit and do more coverage. We will come back in a bit and do more coverage. So join me in about maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes. About 10 Eastern, I'm going to come back on the air for the landing stream. So come back for the landing stream. Thanks to our other viewers too, like Marty Swanson and Paula Thompson, Melissa Terry, Amy D. Nice, Linville. Thank you for watching. Mr. Clam over there on Twitch, 66 Modi, Upside Down Clown World, Distant Galaxy, John Parnell, Richie Vegas, Groovy American Tourist, Ampersandy, and others. Glam Girl. All right, so I'm wrapping it up. You've been watching our coverage of the successful undocking of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft with no crew on it, which is heading back to Earth. We will come back. Will the Boeing Starliner spacecraft make it successfully back to Earth with no problems and land intact in New Mexico? We're going to find out. I will be back at roughly 10 p.m. Eastern Time to bring you coverage, and I hope to see you then. So that is it for now. I'll be back in a little bit. Thanks for watching. We'll see you very soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.